night, we saw Joe Biden become the 46th president of the United States. And one person who was watching in awe was 13-year-old Brayden Harrington.
Well, Brayden first met Joe Biden in February last year, where they bonded over their shared experience of a stammer. And Brayden was later invited to appear on stage with Biden at a Democratic convention.
Well, before we speak to Brayden alongside his dad, Owen, let's take a look at the moment Brayden first met the now president.
Hey, Brayden, how are you, man?
We're here because he stutters and we wanted to hear you speak.
Oh, man, come on. Hey, I tell you what, don't let it define you.
Oh,
you are smart as hell. Now, you really are. You can do that. Can I get a phone number for you and I can tell you what I used to do and how I would do it? Can you take his phone? Because there's about 25 stutterers I continue to work with, and it took a lot of practice, but I promise you, you can do it. I promise you. Don't let it define you. And you know when I say I know about bullies, you know about bullies. The kids who make fun, it's going to change, honey. I promise you.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, he just has such an incredible way about him. It's in that personal touch with people and that commitment to making a difference. It's just amazing. Right, let's speak to Brayden because he's met him. His dad Owen's there as well. I imagine, Dad, you're feeling incredibly proud of your son there. And Brayden, I mean, you look at that moment when you first met him, and this was you didn't really want to go. You sort of went along. You thought, well, I don't really want to go. I bet you're glad after having that chat with him that you did.
Yeah, I was really glad of chatting with him. It made me more confident about what I do and what I say.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
he was talking to you about techniques that he uses. What does he use? What did he pass on to you?
As a kid, he used Yeats, a poem, and he used to practice them in his mirror every morning and night, before and after Catholic school. And he had no therapist. I don't think he did. And then he also marked his addresses to keep in shape.
So you must have been watching that speech he gave last night like the rest of the world, but it must have felt a little bit more special to you because there is a guy who has been through exactly what you are going through, and yet here he is addressing the world, and so beautifully and eloquently. It must be inspiring for you.
Yeah, it really is, because it's like he got elected in a really good spot, where he can show like his courage with COVID, electing a woman, and someone who deals with difficult challenges.
I think a lot of people didn't even know that he had a stutter, and it came as something of a surprise. For you and for kids like you, what do you think that means to have a president who does have a stutter, has overcome it to this degree, and look what's possible? Look where he is. Look what he can do.
I would say just to don't give up. He's made it through February, or when he first began. And Trump's a hard guy. He'll knock you down, but he got through, and he did amazing with it.
Well, Biden was true to his word and he kept in touch, and he invited you to speak at a Democratic convention. Dad, Owen there, you must have been so proud of your son at that moment.
Yeah, my wife and I were certainly overwhelmed with the situation, because we're taking our son and putting him in front of millions of people and just hoping for the best. But Brayden definitely wanted to do it, and the way that he put it was really eloquent. He said that he had the opportunity to be the voice for all these other children who stutter and people who stutter, but also just other people who face challenges, and showing that he can push through it. And he's led by that, and we're very proud of him for that.
We're just watching that moment where he was really, I mean, that is incredible warmth, and he gave me his phone number. And were you surprised that he took that time to stop and concentrate for that moment on Brayden?
No, I wasn't surprised by that moment. I was surprised by the offer of the phone number, and I was surprised by him saying, I want to take more time to talk to you, so hang around. And when I'm done talking to everybody on the rope line, I want to touch base with you. I mean, what you saw there is Joe Biden. That's who he is. He will take time to speak to every single person that wants to take time with him. And the stories of him going above and beyond are endless. I mean, you can search them online, and what he says is what he means, and that's who he is. So we couldn't be prouder that he's now our president.
Yeah, Brayden, it's great to meet you. Thank you for joining us today.
I mean, not only is he an inspiration, but also Brayden, so are you. Well done, and thank you for talking to us today so eloquently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Right, Ed Balls and Bev Turner have joined us now with their reaction to the inauguration last night. And Ed, I was reading this morning, because you yourself have also had a stammer, which you've had to work with over a number of years. And I was quite surprised to find out that it wasn't until you were 41, am I right, that it was diagnosed?
Oh, you're on mute.
No, we can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? Is that a thing?
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're right, I was actually a cabinet member. I knew I had a real struggle sometimes to speak in public, but I wasn't told it was a stammer till I was actually in the cabinet. I think the thing about Joe Biden is he's known what it's like to be a boy, a young man, an aspiring politician with a stammer. And the thing which I learned, and Brayden's done, is actually going out there and being public and talking about it. It's a brave thing to do, but it's actually the thing which makes the difference. It makes a difference to so many children around the world and adults who are inspired. But actually for Brayden, he's done the hardest thing. Coming on this programme, talking about his stammer, gives him a confidence and will relax him. In the end, Brayden, it's not something you catch. It's not something you cure. It's just part of who you are. And you've now got the confidence to say, this is just me. And I think that's what Joe Biden's done throughout his life as well. He is a president with a stammer. And it says to Brayden, if he wants to be a president or a pop star like Ed Sheeran, an actress like Emily Blunt, a politician like I was, he can do that. Being public about it is a very important part of that. So I think Joe Biden's an inspiration. So is Brayden. The bravery to be public and talk about it now will set him up for life. But I think it will inspire very many people who normally keep this under wraps. Covering it up is the worst thing.
For obviously for President Biden and closer to home for you, to put yourself through the political bear pit, I mean, that's got to take guts, knowing that if you falter, then someone will think, he doesn't know what he's talking about, or he's forgotten, or he's lost his train of thought, or we can't trust this guy. So you have to contend with extra.
Well, in the House of Commons sometimes, pressure was enormous. For 2 years, I said to my stammering therapist, because I got one after I realised what it was, I said, I can't be public. I'm a cabinet minister. I can't talk about it. And she said, it's only when you are public it will start to make the difference. I then met some children who were talking about their stammers, and I was being private. And I thought, actually, I'm being a coward here. So in the end, I had to decide to be brave and to be public. And look, sometimes your speech goes wrong. You shrug your shoulders and think, okay, well, it was just one of those days. I think the thing which is still hard is that with some things, like a physical disability, it's now not acceptable to laugh. But these days, if somebody stammers or stutters, people still think it's okay to laugh, to interrupt, to say, that was a stammering response. This is not something Brayden is it's not his fault. And actually, it doesn't stop him doing things brilliantly. He can become the president. And our society has still a little bit of work to do to realise that we shouldn't laugh at Brayden, Joe Biden, people with stammers. We should actually just understand and then see them for what they are, as you said, a warm politician who is now the leader of the free world. It's amazing.
Well, it didn't hold him back yesterday. His speech was remarkable. It was a speech of unity, that's for sure. And here's what he had to say.
At this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. My whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation.
So, Bev, were you watching yesterday? What did you make of that?
Yeah, I was actually out having to pick up some books from my children's school at the time, but I was listening to it all on the radio, and I like to listen to some of the American stations because it's quite interesting to see what they make of it. The Americans make a lot, actually, of Biden's Irish heritage, more than we do in this country, because of course, his ancestors were from Ireland. But I think actually Brayden summed it up
yesterday.
Oh, well, I must have been in the car around about that time.
Picking more books up.
Phillip, I'm so sorry. I'll watch it on. I'll watch it on catch up. But I think Brayden summed it up beautifully when he's saying about the example that he's setting. And not only, I was recalling Donald Trump. Do you remember him physically mimicking a disabled journalist to win votes? How different could this be? And a lot of the speech yesterday was religious. The Americans are, we remember on occasions like this, they have more overt religion than we do, but about walking out of the dark and into the light. And it felt true. It felt accurate. This feels like a big moment in history. And I actually sat there listening, thinking, will this appeal to the core Trump voters? Remember, 70 million of them who still believe in Donald Trump. And I actually concluded that if anyone can win them over, it could be Joe Biden. And it will be that sort of rhetoric, which is very simplistic in its good versus evil. I am now good, say goodbye to evil. So I think we have a lot of cause for optimism.
Ed, obviously, you know, sort of, 70 million Americans voted for Donald Trump, many of them furious that he wasn't president. Obviously, the president's rhetoric didn't help. It seemed to be a really rather ungracious exit yesterday, undignified. But there he is, there's Biden, he's the president. And for those people who were looking for a change, especially around the world, especially politicians around the world, prime ministers, would they be heaving a sigh of relief, thinking, right, OK, we can breathe again now, we might be a bit safer here?
I think there will definitely be lots of people around the world breathing a sigh of relief, because Donald Trump, look, in the last period, with inciting the action against the Congress, I mean, that was terrible. But all through his presidency, he often slipped into what felt like racist language, but also he was so unpredictable. And it's very hard if you are a prime minister or president around the world, when you're dealing with an American president where you don't quite know what he's going to say from minute to minute in any situation. I think America will be a better global partner, a better force for good in the world. Of course, the contrast with Donald Trump not being there, but George Bush Jr., the former Republican president, sitting Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, when Joe Biden talked about civility and the common support for democracy cross-party, that's something Donald Trump put himself outside. My worry, though, is, as you said, 70 million people still voted for Donald Trump. People voted for Donald Trump even though they often didn't like some of the things he said and did, because what they wanted was to vote for an outsider, somebody who wasn't part of Washington, who would stand up for them. They felt their lives weren't good enough. They were getting a raw deal, and that's not gone away. And I don't know whether Donald Trump will disappear. If you ask me, I think he or one of his family members may be angling to stand for president in 4 years' time. Yeah. But even if it's not Trump, and I think it might be, that divide in America and that sense of many people feeling outside, that's not gone away. Well, and for Joe Biden, challenge of uniting, that's hard.
There was certainly on that rostrum a feeling of unity. Mike Pence did represent the outgoing presidency. But at the same time, let's not forget what else was happening at that moment, and that was Kamala Harris making history as the first woman to hold office, as well as being the first black woman, the first woman of South Asian descent to hold the title.
Look at her.
Looking absolutely stunning, but more importantly, everything she represents with this incredibly razor-sharp political mind. I'm sure she's, got a core of steel, but at the same time, she does seem to be doing this with great style and grace, Beverly.
Absolutely, it's the phrase "you have to see it to be it." We've just been talking about Joe Biden having the stammer and setting an example to people who have that same challenge. Well, Kamala Harris is setting the example that we've been so desperate for, which is, as you say, a woman of mixed heritage having that position of power. The pendulum has swung so far from a white supremacist being in the White House to now a diverse leadership, and it is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And she is not there because of her gender and her race. She is there, as you say, Phil, because she has wonderful professional heritage as well. She has all of the experience, all of the skills. I hope she'll be a great diplomat. My only slight concern, and I would love to know what Ed thinks about this as a politician, is whether, given the bullies and the way that Donald Trump coped with the bullies across the world, I'm thinking about Putin and Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping, do we now have to have concerns that a softer approach, a more diplomatic approach, won't have quite as much impact with those leaders because they understood the language of threat that Donald Trump spoke?
Bearing in mind, Ed, that Donald Trump was a president that did not lead America into war.
That's right.
That is true, but in his dealings with South Korea, with Russia as well, he often seemed to flip between tough language and then almost praising language to these dictators. I think we're going to see a big difference. It's not going to be America alone, the president from day to day saying what he thinks. I think America is going to become more of a partner. I think you'll see tough action against China, but America will be seeking to do this in cooperation with other countries. Britain is the presidency of the G7, the big countries this year. I think America will want us to be a partner. I'm not sure Donald Trump saw things in quite that way. On climate change, on dealing with Iran, I think the Americans will want to work together. Will that mean they will be weaker on China? I don't think so, and I hope not. Actually, if you're dealing with big powers, you need other countries to come together. And just unilateralism doesn't work.
I think that G7 is in Cornwall, actually, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, they'll all pass these all around.
That's right.
That'll do it.
Thank you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you.